So this story takes place a lot at school, at Millersville University. I came out to Lancaster from the West Coast, and on the West Coast there is no humidity, and there is no such thing as a sinus headache at all. So when I came here, it was a big shock to find that there is such a thing as a sinus headache, and it really can get you. So I was going to Millersville, finishing up my elementary ed teaching degree, and I had to take the one math class required for elementary ed majors, which is math for elementary ed majors at Millersville. And I was in the basement of Bassler Hall back in 1982, and Bassler Hall's basement was painted yellow, kind of a sickly yellow color, and it was very, very humid, and there was black mold all around the top of the room. Like, you could see it, but nobody knew what black mold even was or did at that point. You just put up with it. And so it was a little bit miserable. There were a lot of us crammed into the room, and on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I had this math class with Dr. Russo. And Dr. Russo was a really intense, dark-haired guy, and he was a real smoker, so he would be teaching us the math about how to teach story problems, and he'd make us do all the story problems, and he was super intense, and we would be sitting there at these long tables, just chock full of us, and all of a sudden, he would be like marking on the board and telling us all about these numbers and everything, and we'd be like following along real fast, and then all of a sudden he'd turn around to some poor victim and say, 9 times 8, and you'd go, ah, because you knew what 9 times 8 was, but when somebody puts you on the spot like that, your lizard brain is in effect. You can't even think, so you're like, ah, I don't know. So then he kept lecturing us about how we have to know our times tables and all that. Well, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, when I had the math class, each afternoon I would get this horrible, horrible headache. It was the spring, there was the black mold, it was really humid out, and I would just get these awful headaches, and I had never gotten awful headaches like these headaches before, and I didn't really know what they were. So I had a young family and was living with my mother-in-law at the time, so I went back home and told her I was getting these headaches every time I went to math class. I couldn't even think straight. The headaches were so bad. She said, well, do you kind of get some pressure here? Yeah. Do you kind of get some pressure like up here? Yeah. She said, that's a sinus headache. And I was like, what? Ah, it's awful. She said, I have just the thing for you. So as an unlikely pusher as she was, she gave me pills. And she just handed them to me. And she said, take one of these, and it'll fix you right up. And I was like, okay. So then, every time I would go, before I went to math class, I took one of her little pills, and my headache was still there, but not as much, but I still had it. So then she said, okay, the next day, I went to class, she said, take 2 of these. So she handed me 2 of them. And they didn't have no drowsiness sinus medicine, and I never read the box because she was just handing them to me. And what would happen would be I would be driving and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And then I'd get to class, and amidst all the, you know, if 2 trains are traveling west and one is traveling east at 75 miles an hour, blah, 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 all of that going on, and then every so often the 6 times 9, like I was falling asleep. And I was just like, my head felt like a bowling ball, and I was like, and then I would snap out of it, and being the good student that I am, I was like trying to pay attention, but then I'd be like, and I'd be falling asleep. So one certain particular Wednesday, my head was, I had taken a couple of the pills, and I didn't have the headache so much anymore, but man, was I tired. So I fell totally asleep on my arms at this long table. I just fell asleep completely. And I don't know how much later it was. I really don't even know how much later it was, but I kind of came to and opened one eye, and the room is dark and nobody's even around anymore. Everybody's gone. And I put my head up and I look over, and there's Dr. Russo, and he says, "Quick, what's 8 times 9?